Forget you have daughter, she said, holding her tears. Daughter. Shut up, she yelled. Just shut up, she yelled out of pain. And her parents looked at her with teary eyes as her eyes burning with anger, pain. When her gaze shifts to the little figure standing there, being scared, and tears were in his eyes, her gaze softens a little as she looks away, wiping her tears away, and she walked out. I'm sorry, daughter. His voice gives him support. She grabbed her chest, taking support as she covered her mouth, trying to suppress her sobs. Fine. A familiar voice reaches to her ears, and her brows straighten. As she looked, and he looked at her with so much emotion, but holding his tears back, he walked to her. How long I have been calling you? Why you not picking my calls? He said, and tears started to well in her eyes more, looking at him. Her lips trembled as she looked away before looking back at him. Appa. It was more like a whisper as he moves a step forward, but she couldn't hold herself back as she ran to him and hugged him tightly, bursting into tears, and he hugged her back. Are you okay, Buck? He whispers, but she didn't say anything, and she cried her heart out. He rubbed her back. Yeah, don't cry like this, or else I'll cry with you, he muttered, but she didn't stop crying. Why not? Don't cry like this. I'm sorry, he muttered, kissing her back like a baby. Her sobs got louder, which makes him worried as he tried to break the hug, but she didn't let him. It's enough, Vaina. Why are you crying so hard? He muttered, and she finally broke the hug and cupped her face, wiping her tears, and her soft whimper brought tears in his eyes, looking at his baby sister as he pulled her in his embrace again. I'm very bad brother, right? Who is making his baby sister crying like this? He softly muttered, but she couldn't say anything as everything in her body hurts. At least say I'm bad. You say you hate me, but never forget to wish me every year. And I'm being arrogant. He muffled and she broke down. She is crying by madness now, as she shook her head and he wiped her tears, softening his gaze. I'm sorry, he whispers, and she shook her head. I'm sorry. She whispers back. Somehow he smiled with tears as he pecked her forehead. Hope you're okay, he muttered, and she just watched him. I'm sorry. I'm really very sorry to you. I know I hurted you a lot, he said, and she nodded. Why you left me alone, she said with so much pain, and he couldn't say further. You were always right, she whispered. Your brother is sorry. That's why I came here to see you, he said, and she closed her eyes tightly. As she opened her eyes slowly, but her gaze shifts to the person standing behind, watching them silently. As her brows straightened, and she removed his brother's hands slowly, as she walked towards him, and while her brother watched her, as his gaze shifts to the person she is walking towards. Are you okay? He asked her softly, while she is walking towards them. She looked at the bouquet in his hand and then him, and Jin walked to her. Who is he, Ryan? He asked, and Jungkook looked at him, her husband Young. He replied, and he looked at her. Ryan. When did it happen? And how? It's not true, right? It's true, she replied without breaking the eye contact, and Jungkook looked at her, feeling relieved. Ryan. Oppa, can we talk later? I want to talk to him. Her gaze sent shivers to his spine as an unknown fear rushed to his body. Her brother didn't look satisfied with her answer at all. As he held her hand and she looked at him. Are you okay? He asked, this time with brotherly aura, and stealing glances of her gives him a hint of situation that something is not right. I want to talk to him, she said, looking down as she removed his grip. I'll come back, she said, trying hard to smile, as her brother just watched her, and Jungkook did too. Are you okay, Ryan? He asked, but she didn't answer as she tried to walk, avoiding those two. But at very first step, her vision got blurry and she stumbled, and Jin and Jungkook moved in action quickly as Jungkook was the one to catch her. as his expression turns to worried ones, immediately checking her. Are you okay? His voice flickered, checking her. You're not right, Buck. Tell me what happened. He scolded her. Jungkook quickly opened his car to take out the water bottle as he extended to near his lips, which she moves away it from her hands and Jin snatched the bottle from his hand. Don't act childish, he said as she made her drink water, and Jungkook just watched her. I'll take you hospital, he said with concern and she shook her head. I'm okay. Not looking at him. No, you are not okay, Ryan. You are not okay, he said a bit frustrated. I'm okay, Oppa. You came, I'm alright now, she said, trying to assure him. She looked at Jungkook almost like glaring at him. Let me talk to him, I'll get back to you, she said, looking at him as she looked back at her brother. You will wait for me this time, right? Or you will leave me again, the way you did 7 years ago, she said, making him feel a twitch in his heart as he looked at her guilty. I won't leave you, he was first feeling guilty and she looked down. As she walked to his car before sitting inside, Jungkook just watched her and Jin walked near Jungkook. You better not to hurt my sister, he warned him. He folded arms in front of him and gave a small smile. I will die before doing that, he replied, and Jin's gaze maintained the same ways. Come with us to your sister's house. There's a lot to talk, I guess, he said, and Jin lowered his hand. I will definitely, he said, and Jungkook nodded. As he looked towards Ryan and looked back at Jin. I'll take my leave then, he said, and Jin just watched him as he walked in his car before driving off. Jin looked at the house as his eyes were burning with anger due to the new information he got, as he decided to walk in. Jungkook eyed on Ryan, who is silent but looks very upset, as he is afraid to start any conversation with her while her heart is ripping apart every minute when she suddenly speaks. Stop the car, she said with desperation as Jungkook looked at her. But I said stop the car, she said with rage. Jungkook pulled the brakes as she unlocked the door as soon as the car stopped. As Jungkook just watched her as he also does unlock the car and walk out. While Ryan gasped, catching breath, as it feels like something is suffocating her, as she is struggling to breathe, and Jungkook followed her. She took support of the railing while Jungkook looked at her worried. Ryan, are you okay? Should I take you to hospital? Do you have mask? She speaks out of blue as he looked at her confused and nervous. Yes, I do have, he muttered in low voice. She remained silent when he bent to his car to bring the mask and took the bouquet as well as he approached her. He said, extending her mask, and she looked at his hand before snatching from his head. She finally looked at him and they made eye contact. Looking in her eyes, he realized she is in pain. As he tried to approach her and tried to cup her face, but her hand blocked his move as she recklessly moved his hand. Her hand struggled to open the packet as her hands were trembling when Jungkook tried to help her. Let me do it, he said, but she cuts off. I don't need your help, she uttered. When she took the mask aggressively while he just watched her. And she looked at him and her hand reached to his face to make him wear the mask, but he stopped her. Ryan, he said, gasping, and she tightened her jaw before speaking. Let me do it, she said, and he loosened the grip as she made him wear the mask. And he just watched her, and by now he realized the situation is. Tears started to coming from her eyes like rain as she hiccuped, and she tried bursting into tears, looking at him, and his heart swelled looking at her condition. She held her head with one hand and cried, and he watched her as tears started to build in his eyes too, looking at her. And bouquet fell from his hand. She rested her head on his chest, clutching it tightly, crying as she is about to hug her, but she broke hug, wiping her tears. Did you really try to bankrupt my dad company? She asked with rage, and her throat hurts as he fell numb at her question. Answer me, she asked with desperation as he looked at her speechless. Fine, my intentions were not. She grabbed his collar. Yes or no? She asked with rage, and he looked at her with his raised heartbeat as she's looking at her dangerously. And he looked down. Yes, in low voice, and she released his collar slowly as she felt her world collapsed because she was still in denial. She looked at him unbelievable and painful, and it hurt like her hell. As Jungkook tried to approach her, but Ryan, he tried to approach her, but before he could complete, a hard slap landed on his face, making his face aside and step back. She yelled as people around walking on street looked at them, while Jungkook looked at her with a red teary eyes, and he knows he is at fault, and her anger is justified. Just shut up, she said, glaring at him. She held her head as tears fall from her eyes as she almost sat on sidewalk. As Jungkook sniffed badly looking at her, and her face turned expressionless as Jungkook held her one hand and held another one while she looked like a lifeless body. Fine, I'm sorry, but listen to me, he said while crying. He pulled her up and pulled her in his embrace as she looked like a lifeless body as he kissed her forehead, crying hard. I'm so sorry, he said, crying hard while her condition is like that she can't hear anything. I love you, Maya. I always loved you, he muttered as she looked at him. That's why you bought me, she said with so much pain, and he shook his head viciously. I swear, Ryan, I didn't mean to. She removed his hand, pushing him away. You bought me. I was a toy that you bought me, John Junko. You bought your wife, right? You didn't marry her. You paid the price for her. You paid the price to keep your generation keep moving forward, to give height to your family, right? She bitterly said. And he shook his head. She cupped his face, bringing near her face. You want higher. You want my body. You want wife. You don't want me. You never wanted my love. You never loved me, she whispers, looking directly in his eyes, and his lips trembled with pain. You will use me until you recover the money you have paid for me, right? She asked like a maniac. No. A soft pimple left from his mouth as he burst into tears. I do love you. I always loved you, Ryan. I don't know what happened to me, he said with so much pain while looked at him as if she unaffected. I find you everywhere. I find my smile everywhere. But you never came. You know what? You were for me. The person who makes me smile when I have no one by my side when I am crying. And now, she choked. Now you were the reason behind my unbearable pain which I am feeling here, she said, pointing at her hurt side as his lip trembled. Can you feel my pain? He nodded slowly. No, you cannot. You can't, you never can. It's hurting more than any physical pain. You don't have any idea, John Jungkook, she said, grating teeth with pain. No one out there have no idea what I'm going through. No one means no one, she said with so much emotions. When I told you everyone I loved is betrayed me, it's true because they did. And I don't think I deserve the people she said, jerking him away. You broke me. You broke me like if you try to join those pieces, it will make you and me bleed. You will never able to get back that Ryan. She bitterly said, you killed that girl. You killed that Ryan, she said, and he fell on his knees, folding hands in front of her. Forgive me, Ryan. I don't know how to repair it. I just don't know. But I never wanted to hurt you, he said, crying. But you did, she uttered, and he shook his head. Please forgive me, he said, crying badly, when she kneeled down to his level, cupping his face, and he looked at her guilty, and she wiped his tears. Fine. Divorce me, she said, making his heart drop, and desperation reflected on his face. No, I can't, he said with desperation. Why you can't divorce me? Oh yeah, you bought me right. You have paid the price, she said, and he covered her face. Because I love you. I can't live without you. I will die without you, he said with desperation and pain. And if I lived with you, I will die, she muttered, making his heart to shatter in pieces. Please, he pleaded, and she shook her head. It's suffocating me, Jungkook. I won't be able to live, she cried. I'm hating the fact. I'm hating the truth. I'm hating you. A low sob left from his mouth. I'm sorry, he said, folding hands, and she shook her head. Jungkook, I can't pay the price you have paid for me, but I beg you, please let me go, she begged, and he shook his head. You are asking my heart to stop beating, he said helplessly as he hugged her tightly. I don't know how to live without you. I will die. The reason I chose you, the reason I have gone against my will. You don't know how deep it is, how hard it is. I don't know how to explain. I don't know. Please don't leave me, he said, hugging her tightly, and she tried to push him, but failed miserably. It's you, and you compelled me to do these things. You drive me crazy. You don't know the depth. It's hard to explain what you are for me, the connection I felt with you at very first sight, he confessed, and she sobbed badly. I tried hard to push myself from you, but I failed every time. The more I push, the more I love you deeply, the more you drive me crazy. I can't get you out of my head since the day I saw you. It's crazy, Ryan, he said, hugging her like as if she is his oxygen and he needs it to survive. I love you wildly, insanely, infinitely, he said, hugging her tighter while she struggled to breathe. You are selfish, she bitterly said. I'm selfish, but I love you selflessly. Only you, Ryan. I never looked at anyone the way I look at you, he said, crying hard. I tried to hate you, but I failed. I failed every time. And I'm really sorry. I know my ways are not right, but I never intended to hurt you. I don't know what to do without you. Please, I beg, Ryan. I won't bother you, but just don't ask me to leave you, he uttered. I can't breathe, Jungkook, please leave me, he said as he broke the hug, covering her face. I'm sorry, he said, wiping her tears. You promised me that you will give me everything I want, whether how big it is, how expensive it is. Then I'm asking, just divorce me. You don't have any idea how suffocating it is. It's too expensive, I can't afford. I'm sorry. If you asked my life, I would happily give you, he said with trembling lips. You are not helping at all, she said while sobbing. Just divorce. He raised his tone, making her flinch as he shook his head. I'm sorry, Ryan. Can't, he cried, hugging her chest, and she looked helpless. It feels so mess. All what she knows that she is struggling with her emotions. Nothing is clear to her. While he sobbed, hugging her tightly. I'm asking you the last time. You won't. I won't. I won't, he said, sobbing badly. When she wiped her tears as she broke the hug, cupping his face, stop crying, she said coldly as he pleaded her with his eyes, and she got up, and he held her wrist. Don't worry, I'm not running. You bought me right, how can I? She said, making him feel more guilty as she removed his hand, and he also got up with her. As if he will leave her for a second and she might disappear, and he won't be able to see her again. As she walked, and he followed her like a shadow. As she eyed on him, and she walked to his car before bringing out the water bottle as she extended to him. And he looked at her strange, and she assured him as she made him drink water, while a lone tear escaped from her eyes as she wiped his mouth with her sleeves while He just watched her. Did he forgive me? He asked, sniffing, and she remained silent. Come on, say something, Ryan. He said his desperation, and she looked up with those eyes who were smiling in pain. Do I have that much right? She speaks. Do I have right to get mad at you? Do I have right to forgive you? Who I am? She said, and he wiped her tears. You are the woman who have right to control this land. You are my wife, my better half. You are my love. You are my heartbeat. And she chuckled, sadly wiping her own. You are late at this, she muttered. I know, he whispers. She looked up. I'm struggling to breathe, Jungkook. I can't breathe. She said, and he cupped her face. Let me take you to hospital, he said, holding her hand, and she shook her head. Give me water, she said, trying to breathe, and when he looked at the bottle, it's empty. Come with me, let me buy water bottle. She stopped him and shook her head. I won't be able to, she said, and he looked at her, gulping. You're making me scared, Ryan. Can't leave you here alone, he uttered, and she looked in his eyes with teary eyes. If you don't trust me, how can you love me? She whispers, and he wiped her tears. There's difference, he whispers, and she removed his hands. Then by like this, you will love to see me dying in front of your eyes rather than helping, she said, and he looked at her, worried and angry. I swear I hate you when you talk like this, he said. Bring me water if you don't want me to die here. He looked at her, really angry. You make me mad, Ryan. I swear I don't know what should I do, he bitterly said. Go, Jungkook, she said, and he looked at her when he kissed her forehead. Don't move from here, I swear. You are not able to handle my love. How you will handle when I actually hate you, he said, and she just watched him. Let his eyes speak a lot. I'm not able to handle you whole, she said, and he just watched her eyes, as if her eyes telling something. You don't care about me, he said, and she smiled painfully. As if you did. If you did, you would never do this, she bitterly said, but it's like a mirror she showed to him. You didn't care about my feelings, but I will go through if I got to know the truth, she said, and he looked down. I will bring water, he said, looking down as he holding her hands gently. He touched his forehead on her knuckles before kissing them, as she just watched him. I know I am wrong, and there is no hearing for that. I'm your culprit, he whispers with trembling lips, and she looked away as her tears fall. I'll be back, he muttered, and she just watched him. He walked a little as he looked back, and only to find her crying silently, which made his heart swell, and by now he's regretting every action and cursing himself why he did that. As he turned, and she looked at him only to cry mess. As she covers her mouth to control her sobs, and she shut her eyes tightly when her phone rings as she wiped her tears before picking. Hello, Ryan, where are you? Are you okay, my sister? He said, being worried. That man told me everything. I swear I will kill both of them. Tell me, where are you? Baby, are you okay? You don't have to worry. Your brother is with you. I'm really sorry for leaving you with these inhuman people, he bombarded while she just listened. Hey Ryan, are you listening me? Are you there? Hope that didn't hurt you, he said when he heard her taking deep breath. I'm fine, Opa. She finally spoke, making him relief. Where are you? I'm coming, he said, and she looked down. Very far, she said, making him frown. What are you saying? Tell me your location exactly. I'm not feeling right. I will not leave that. Jungkook. His name is Jungkook, she speaks. But Ryan. He loves me, Oppa. He's in love with me so deeply. He's crazy, she muttered. Have you gone crazy, Ryan? Why are you talking like this? He will hurt you, he angrily said. So you do. You hurted me as well. From you to Oppa and him too. What should I do? She said as if she was so hurt. Sorry, Ryan. Everyone is sorry, Opa, after crushing my heart like this. She muttered. Fine, send me your location. You are not alright. He said, and she remained silent. Fine, listen to me, my baby sis. Your brother is alive right now. With you, you don't have to be afraid of anyone. Your brother is there for you. He said, and he heard her sighing. My ears yearn to hear this, that someone is there for me. But thank you for saying, she said, wiping her tears. My baby says, I am there for you. I'm coming. And I'll make sure that to get your culprits behind the bars. She looked down as there is a silence for a while. Sorry, Opa. She speaks out of blue and his eyes stared up. Why, sorry, baby. I should be the one apologizing, he said, and she just listened to him. Okay, bye, Opa, she said, wiping her tears. But why? She hung up the call. She looked at the river as she threw her phone in it, and she heard people shouting, but she ignored as if she stepped. And she chuckled sadly. You can't live without me. I am the problem, so let's end this problem, she muttered. Hey girl, get down, a large number of people shouted. Jungkook's steps halted as he saw the crowd. He doesn't know what is happening as he tried to cross the road in rush, and he is about to hit by a car. But without caring, he ran in that direction. If anything in this world who could give those happiness back was you, smile. But you choose to hurt me instead, she muttered. As she looked at the ring in her finger, the smile I searched everywhere was with me only, and I keep rejecting it, she muttered, kissing her ring. I hurted you, I know, but not compared to you as much as you did, she said. He yelled as she looked back with those red teary eyes, hopeless eyes. And he's terrified as he tried to move, but she moved her feet a little, making him stop at his place. Don't move, he yelled. I don't want to do this anymore. My heart is too weak to handle any heartbreak, she muttered, and he shook his head as he felt his heart in his throat. Please don't. You bought my existence, Jungkook. That's why I want to vanish my existence, she uttered, and he shook his head vigorously, looking at her feet, which was on edge. You bought my body, not soul. You bought wine, not her feelings. You broke her, remember that, which was on edge of falling apart. No, I am, he said, being terrified. You are not the sole reason, don't worry. That's my will. Don't feel guilty, she said, wiping her tears as she maintained a smile on her face. I love you, Jungkook, but I can't love you, she muttered, and his tears dropped as she shook his head. Fine. She let her body to go with flow. As she loosened her body and closed her eyes as it's falling, he yelled top of his lungs as he tried to rush there, but people around him stopped as he protested while crying mess. And she winced as her head hit something hard before falling into water. As she closed her eyes, and every flashback as her body got deeper in water. She closed her eyes finally as her tears mixed with water. Goodbye for this lifetime.